Thank you all for turning up today at 8:30. I don't think I would be able to make it if I wasn't speaking. I'm super excited to give the talk, Compromising Threat Actor Communications. I changed the name to Man in the Malware Intercepting Adversarial Comms for the DEF CON talk. I think this sounds cooler, so I'm going to stick with that. Without further ado, let's get on with it. I'm going over a quick agenda. I'm going to start off with a who am I, and we're going to make sure we're all at a similar level of understanding of InfoSealer's C2 Telegram operational security. And once we've got this foundational level of understanding, we'll look at a case study. We'll look at a particular sample of malware, and we'll analyze it live on stage. And we'll look at some of the mistakes associated with this sample of malware and how we can exploit these for intelligence wins. So, obligatory, who am I? I'm Ben. I go by the online handle Polygon Ben. I'm extremely fortunate to work at Huntress as an analyst. Prior to that, I worked at a large consultancy company. I love all things threat hunting, malware analysis, exposing threat actors. That's what I'm doing here today. I've got a few blogs. One is a personal blog. I post content related to malware analysis, threat intelligence, and some CTF walkthroughs. And I've also got another blog down there, which is a collaboration blog. I did a talk yesterday on a case which I've uploaded on that bottom blog there. Check it out. So what's ahead? We're going to be looking at real InfoStealers, real malware, which is found in the wild. And as I mentioned, we're going to look at mistakes the malware developer made. And these mistakes constitute OPSEC failures. And we can exploit these failures for intelligence wins. And specifically, in this case, we will be able to watch the cybercrime operation from the cybercriminal's own computer as a result of a chain of OPSEC failures made by this particular threat actor. But let's step back, right? A lot of juicy stuff to get into. Before we compromise any threat actor communications and do any fancy stuff, hijacking cybercriminals' Telegram chats, we'll go over the fundamentals. So, InfoStealers. They're a type of malware which steals data from systems. Maybe these are credentials or cryptocurrency wallets, sensitive files. Info-stealing malware will run on victim machines, look for these locations on disk, and then exfiltrate it. They're the most common type of malware out there, the most prevalent. We see a lot of Lumacilla, Radamanthus recently. A lot of it is being delivered via ClickFix nowadays. It's not the biggest threat or the most scary malware, but it's the most prevalent. We see it everywhere. So I mentioned there, InfoStealers, they gather this data, sensitive data. A core point is they have to exfiltrate it. They have to send this stolen data to some threat actor controlled location. And this is what command and control is. Command and control is how malware communicates. So all malware, for the most part, will initiate network communications at some point, right? You can probably say, yeah, look, this specific ransomware sample doesn't, but for the most part, malware will need to receive commands to be ran on victim machines, or it will need to send data back to some location. So how does malware perform command and control? Traditionally, a threat actor would have to buy some infrastructure. Maybe they would buy a domain, they would get a VPS, they would install their command and control software on this VPS, and then they would develop their malware. And they would hard-code in their malware the domain name or the IP address with the infrastructure they've set up. And they would use regular network protocols, HTTP, DNS, SMTP, as a way to send the data to the C2 server or to receive commands. So this takes time, right? They have to invest, they have to spend money buying domains, they have to get hosting providers, and they need to be careful how they're buying these. Are they paying with cryptocurrency? Are they going to bulletproof hosting? And it's a constant game of you're going to get burnt, your infrastructure is going to get taken down eventually, and you have to set it up, install it again, and start from scratch. And this causes a lot of issues for adversaries. For example, buying a domain, buying hosting, this can introduce OPSEC failures because it can lead to them finances being traced and potentially identifying the individual who's buying the infrastructure. So, living off the LAN C2. Over time, we've seen threat actors, rather than buy their own infrastructure, install their C2 server, configure that, and deal with all the IT issues surrounding that, well, they'll use other trusted platforms. So let's say instead of sending your data to a VPS you've set up in the cloud in a Russian data center, well, you can send it to a Telegram chat, or maybe you'll exfiltrate it over OneDrive. You can proxy your command and control communications through trusted domains like Google Translate, Outlook, I think Lichess is there, and even Counter-Strike 1.6. So you can configure your malware to send the communications to a Counter-Strike 1.6 server, and the threat actor would be reading the data from the Counter-Strike 1.6 server. And as a result, for the network defenders, it just looks like a network connection is being made to maybe a Counter-Strike 1.6 server and any of those other examples. They're trusted domains. So if you're a cyber criminal, I'm posing you a question. If you want a free, quick, high availability, serverless, encrypted platform to host your C2 that is likely to bypass network defenses, and what I mean by that is trusted domain. It's not a .xyz or a .ru domain, which was registered a few weeks ago. What would you choose? And for a lot of cyber criminals, the answer to this question is Telegram. So you can just Google Telegram malware, and there is a large number of articles relating to different variants. There's one there, a rat, an Android rat, which exfiltrates data over Telegram or communicates over Telegram. There is also Iranian APTs using it. There is all sorts of variation of malware which leverages Telegram for C2. But when we say they leverage Telegram for C2, like how does this precisely work? Well, first of all, they would need to create a bot account. These are like automated accounts you can use to interface with the Telegram API. And if you've got Telegram on your phone, you can do this right now. You can message botfather and just say /new bot. I want to create a new bot account. And it will ask you what you want to name your bot. You give it a username, and then it will give you an API key, a token for your bot, so you can authenticate as it. Obviously, this is a password, this is credential, this is some piece of authentication material. Keep your token secure and store it safely. It can be used by anyone to control your bot. That is what Telegram warns users after you create a bot, and keep that in mind. So you've got your bot, you've messaged that bot father, now you embed it within your malware. So you develop your malware, you infosealer malware, and when you get to the stage of developing the malware where you want to exfiltrate it, you'll use the Telegram API with those embedded bot tokens. But the malware is always going to be embedded with those bot tokens, and that malware is going to be sent to victims, and there is always a chance that somebody like me can recover these. We mentioned Telegram API. I'm going to mention a few useful methods that we can use. One of them is send message. This is often used by cyber criminals when they want to exfiltrate data. Maybe it's just credentials, plain text credentials, but all you need is a chat ID. Could be a group chat, a private DM, and you also need the bot token, and you need a message to send. So you basically say, I want to send this message to this chat, and this is my bot token to prove this is who I am. And as a result, we can see there, we just do it using curl. We send the message, example message sent using Telegram API, and as a result, we get a message pop up in Telegram. Get me is another useful method. If we've got a bot token, this can tell us information about the bot. It can tell us the bot's username. It can also tell the bot's privileges, such that can we add the bot to a group? And being able to add a cybercriminal's bot to your own group is something important and something useful we'll use later on. But in this case, we can see this particular bot I created here. It's called DEFCON 33 POC, and it can be added to groups. So there is another API method called getUpdates. This can be used to look for changes which have been happening to a Telegram bot. I mentioned you can add it to different groups. If you pull the getUpdates method and provide the bot token and say, yeah, this is who I am, well, it will tell you I'm in this chat here at the top with a chat ID, and then I'm also at a bottom chat down there. And we can see example group and example group 2 with 2 different chat IDs that the bot is a member of. So we see the bot as a member of 2 chats. We can forward messages from one chat to another, and we can use the forward message method to do this. This will come in handy later. This is actually how we hijack the Telegram actor's the actors' chat and just forward all their messages to our own chat. But we'll get onto that in a sec. Threat actor OPSEC failures. I love these. I love seeing cybercriminals make mistakes, and I love exposing them when they do make these mistakes. We talk about OPSEC a lot in this industry, operational security. Maybe we're talking about somebody who overshares at the pub, or an individual who has the same password across all these accounts. All these stuff constitute poor operational security. Having an IT team which doesn't patch their infrastructure constitutes poor operational security. And something we often forget, cyber criminals, like any other human, also have some level of OPSEC, and I'm waiting till they make these mistakes. So, like your IT team, your sysadmins, if they've got default or weak creds, this will constitute poor OPSEC both for an adversary and for a legitimate business. However, there are more sort of threat actor specific OPSEC failures, like having open directories exposed. I gave a talk on that yesterday, or embedding malware with important API keys and credentials. I'm not going to go through and explain all of these because I'm tight on time, but I'm super passionate about threat actors making mistakes, and if anyone wants to talk to me about that after, I would love to. So yeah, we can exploit these to gain intelligence, understand how the cybercriminals operate, build detections, help our threat hunting teams. And a really good example of this, an OPSEC failure at Huntress that we use, is the fact that cybercriminals rarely change the host names of the machines they operate from. So they'll have Windows machines in the cloud in a VPS somewhere, and it will have a unique username, a unique host name randomly generated, maybe desktop followed by like 5 random characters, or win followed by 5 random characters. These can be really, really high fidelity indicators of compromise. If I've seen this host name associated with a Kira ransomware group, if I see it anywhere else, it's going to be a Kira because these are randomly generated, and they don't change these host names, and they can be a really, really good way of catching threat actors early on. If you've got that telemetry in your SIEM, and you've got that host names in there where you can detect on it. So this is the China-Vietnam case I spoke about yesterday. It's on the blog there. I've also got a QR code. This is an OPSEC failure where a cyber criminal, in this case it was actually a Chinese actor who had compromised 25 Vietnamese universities. He had an open directory which exposed the whole entire campaign, and we were able to disrupt it. That is not the subject of this talk, and we're now getting to the fun, juicy stuff where we're going to be doing the live malware analysis. I'm going to be ripping it apart on stage, and we are going to show InfoStealer log data. We're going to hijack a cybercriminal's Telegram chat, and you would expect to see in this Telegram chat victim data. We're not going to show any victim data or any victim screenshots. So we start off with some malware, and it's phishing. This is how the campaign started. We can see there the email, Dear Customer JSON. It's got an attachment, which is a 7-zip archive. It's weirdly named. We can see it's not coming from a DHL domain, windhym.site. Keep that domain in your mind, windhym.site. It will come back up again. So we got that attachment. It was a 7-zip archive. We can extract this and see, look, it doesn't actually contain anything relating to DHL. It contains a .jsc script. So some JavaScript. We can trim this down, have a look at it. And all this JavaScript file does, when it's double-clicked, it will download an additional PowerShell script. And we can see the URL it's downloaded from there. And we can see it's written to this weird temp directory. So we can download the PowerShell script ourselves and open it up. And it looks fairly small. There's 2 lines. It starts off by creating an executable, x.exe, and then just writing to it. It just basically forward decodes a blob of data and writes to this x.exe binary. We can extract this using CyberChef or some command line magic to basic C4 decode that big blob. And we can see this is actually a .NET binary. I'm not a reverse engineer. I don't know how to open up IDA or GIDA, but I can deal with .NET binaries. You can open them in dnspy or some .NET compiler and get the full plain text source code. So I'm loving life right now. So we've got this x.exe file. We can do some basic static analysis, and we can look at the capabilities using the tool Kappa. And we can see it does some stuff relating to creating a process, suspending a process, allocating it, changing the memory to read, write, execute, terminating it, resuming threads. This stuff all smells of process injection to me. As I mentioned, this is a .NET binary, so we can quickly validate this, and we can look at the source code. I don't believe I've included it here, but on my blog, I've done a full malware analysis where I sort of deep dive it. But what does this x.exe do? We looked at its functions. We could see it was doing some process injection type activity. Well, when the x.exe executable is ran, well, it spawns a process. It spawns regasm.exe, and this is signed by Microsoft. This is legitimate. We're not really concerned about regasm.exe, but it was spawned in a weird way. It was spawned in a suspended state, and its memory was manipulated. And within the memory space of a legitimate process, regasm.exe, well, the final payload was injected into it. And this is the Nova InfoStealer payload. We can take a strings dump of the Nova InfoStealer payload and see like keylogger.txt, user keylogger.txt, and then like file paths to common Chromium browsers. So we know we've got like the InfoStealer payload here. We can also look at this final Nova payload and see this is also .NET, meaning we can get the full plaintext source code. So it was initially found in December 2024 by AnyRun. It was a variant of Snake Keylogger. A lot of these .NET-based info stealers, as you can basically just decompile to plaintext source code, they're often repackaged and sold around because it's super easy to just change it and make it look new. But this sample has the capability to get the stolen data and exfiltrate it, either using Telegram, SMTP, or FTP. So we can see which option from the configuration, and looking at the configuration down there, I see TG access and TG profile ID variables defined. These are the Telegram bot tokens and the chat ID where the data would be sent to. So we've got the tokens, we've got a chat ID. I know in this Telegram chat there is likely going to be screenshots, keylog files, maybe from victim machines. But what do we do with this? I mentioned some API methods earlier. Well, we can add that Telegram bot to our own group. And once we add it to our own group, we can pull that getUpdates method, and we can get the chat IDs of, well, we know the chat ID of the cybercriminals chat that was embedded within the malware, and we can get the chat ID of our chat, which we've just added the bot to. Now, the bot is a member of two different chats. One is the criminals chat, one is my chat. I can then use the forward message API and iterate through all potential messages and get thousands of notifications. However, AnyRun have created scripts which can do this for us. So the prepare bot, we will pass the token, and then it will tell us the username. We will then add that user to our Telegram chat, and then we'll get the chat ID of our chat. And once we've got the two chat IDs, we can start forwarding all the messages. So this is how we use the first script, the prepare bot. It tells us the username. So we go to our group here, and we add the bot to our group. And once we've done that, we get the chat IDs. Here is the second script. We pass the bot token, the credential, plus both chat IDs, the source and destination. And then it will start go through, just iterate through all possible message IDs, forwarding all the messages. So this is what it looks like. This isn't a video. I thought it was. This Telegram chat goes down. There's thousands and thousands of messages. And you can see user keylogger.txt, and there's some like metadata from the above. I think that says the country is Latvia with that IP address. And this is one potential victim. But we can download all these screenshots, all these keylog files, and see what juicy data has been collected. When I looked at the first screenshot, this is what I saw. And you look at this, and I was thinking, look, this is some backend PHP source code. And if you actually look at the source code, it looks like it's doing bad stuff. And I was thinking, maybe another cyber criminal just by chance had got infected, and as a result. And then I realized that there's Telegram tokens in this as well. So this looks to be like the backend phishing page of a cyber criminal. developing in real time. I still didn't understand exactly what was going on. There looks to be some name. If you look at the path at the top, Kolshi, I'm not sure where that name comes from. But we can look at the next screenshot, and now we know for certain. We can see the exact email that I analyzed and went through stage by stage to eventually get to the Telegram chat. And we can learn a bit more. Like, we can see the email, we can see the attachment, but at the bottom there in the downloads, we can see po.shtml payment. We can see evidence of other cybercrime phishing campaigns, other phishing campaigns. We can see Telegram has been downloaded. And we can see dhl.png. So they're even downloading the DHL logo, which they're going to embed in their phishing page. But we can go forward, and we can see more evidence of the same email that we just analyzed. And as a result, took a copy of the Telegram's, the threat actors chat, and now we're seeing it here. And then I saw in real time, retrospectively looking back, by the way, this was like a month or so later, they were buying the domain windhym.site, which was then used in the future for a phishing campaign to deliver malware, which I analyzed, and then came back to this. So we can see them buying the domain windhym.site. Well, they've got this domain. Well, now what do? You've got a domain. We need to set it up on Cloudflare, point it to an IP address, and we can see them logging into Cloudflare. The email address is aaron.diskubrick@hotmail. I hope that's not the real guy. If it is, I'm sorry. We see a few names pop up during this campaign. But look, we found this windhym.site domain. We can pivot on this. I had those keylog files, so I just wanted to see what would happen if I just like grepped it. And now we can see, look, once again, that Aaron Diskubrick email is from the keylog files, is associated with the windhym domain. And then we've also got, at some point, the keylogger had noted that they had been authenticating to some VPS associated with this domain. That's the IP address, and they're SSHing on port 5677. But we can go through, look at more, and we see this interesting page from Cloudflare, and we can see, look, they don't just own the domain windhym.site. They've also bought the domain BioSecon, eSpirit Polymers, so on and so forth. So they're doing multiple, they've got lots of infrastructure. They're often buying new domains, going the sort of back and forth with domains getting taken down and infrastructure being destroyed, and trying to rebuild it with new accounts under different email addresses. But we can look at each of these domains individually. We can do OSINT on these. We can go on VirusTotal, and we can see almost all these domains have been associated with malicious activity in the past that we can confirm. So we looked at the top one there. This one was also used for DHL mail spam. And that one actually had a RAR archive rather than a .7-zip, but it used the same Telegram bot token. We saw the eSpirit Polymers, one from URL scan, looks to be used for credential harvesting. The Han group was other mail spam with different malware and different Telegram bot tokens, and so on and so forth. So this cybercriminal wasn't just sticking to one campaign. They weren't just doing DHL mail spam phishing to deliver Nova Info Stealer. Well, they had additional domains where they were trying out different variants of malware. They were also trying out credential harvesting phishing. But we can go on through, and we can see their root credentials for SSH. The second they created their VPS, they've logged in for the BioSecon domain. Their root credentials are exposed, and they've set up FastPanel after they've done that, and now their FastPanel credentials have been exposed. And then look, come on, security one-on-one. Where's the password manager? All passwords credentials are in plain text for me to read and to report on. And we can see them, they're logging into one of their, like the panels for their mail for phishing. So yeah, we can see them configuring DNS. They're setting up their records, pointing it to the right IP address in Cloudflare. This is the software they use to do mass mail spam campaigns. So we can see there is 35,000 recipients on this one campaign. We can see there the attachment is new order something. So this is different to what I analyzed, but you can see the scale at which they operate, sending like 35,000 emails at a time. And imagine you are a threat actor like this. You're about to press send on that email to 35,000 recipients. It's going to be sending for a few hours. Well, you want to make sure the malware actually works right. That all the recipients which get it, if they download it, it does actually start sending data to the Telegram chat. And this is my hypothesis for how this threat actor got infected. They obviously created their Telegram chat. They thought it was all going to be secure. And it didn't turn out to be. So we can go on, and I'm not going to go through all the screenshots, but there was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. I love to see this one. They had SMTP issues. So it's not just all the sysadmins and IT people in the crowd which are struggling all the time. The threat actors are too. I love to see this. We also saw they were doing some like DocuSign phishing. This feels like AITM credential harvesting to me. I couldn't validate that, but just from experience, I reckon that's what's going on there. And once again, more and more credentials. It was non-stop credentials. So let's take a breath. What do we start with then? We started off one email. And from that email, there was a JavaScript attachment, and that downloaded a PowerShell script to the temp directory. The PowerShell script writ an executable, which spawned a new process, injected InfoStealer code. That InfoStealer code will exfiltrate data to Telegram, and it also contains the Telegram bot tokens. But the threat actor, at some point in this timeline, had ran it themselves to test that it was going to work, and that screenshots, keylog files would be sent. The threat actor obviously didn't assume that somebody else, like myself, would get their hands on this chat and be able to see all the screenshots and expose all of this. So if you want to do this yourself, if you've got VirusTotal Enterprise, it's super easy just to look for files communicating with API.telegram. If not, you can do some Google dorking and just like Google api.telegram.org and look on like Joe Sandbox or other sandbox websites. And here is the example there. You don't need to do all the fancy malware analysis I did. If you've got a sample, just go on VirusTotal. It will tell you the bot token and chat ID because it's got the HTTP proxy logs, and at some point, that's going to pass through the network. So you don't need to do all the fun, funky stuff I did. You can get the win straight away, basically. So yeah, threat actors make mistakes. Let's exploit them. I'm not saying go out, start brute forcing threat actor infrastructure, OSINT, or whatever. And like, we've seen how much we've learned from this one campaign. We started off with one 7-zip file, and as a result, we could uncover a whole entire cybercrime operation. And the information we can get from this maybe wouldn't be too applicable, but if we do this at scale, maybe with other adversaries, or having knowledge of how the threat actors operate, how they move around your network, the tools they use, is important to be able to detect this shit. Detect this stuff, pardon my French. So yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much.
Not bad. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yeah. I think you have seen all the victims. Have you made an evaluation how many attacks were successful?
Yeah, so on this particular campaign, there were a very little number of victims. The majority of the data we had was for the threat actor. I think I identified about 2 or 3 extra victims, which for sending like 35,000 emails at a time is really, really insignificant. I have seen other Telegram chats which have loads, but this one, 3 victims, super easy to do those notifications and report it. But as I mentioned, I have seen Telegram chats, which I wouldn't talk about. They're not interesting because it is just victim data, just lots of it.
Okay.
But yeah.
So first of all, very nice talk, very interesting. Since you interacted with Telegram channel of the threat actors, are the actions that you took, like adding the bot to a different group or forwarding the messages, are these things that are visible in the chats of the attacker?
That's a great question. So some of it is visible, some of it can be logged, a lot of it won't, and I think in the most part they don't care. I created a Telegram group, and then I added the bot to that group. If I don't modify the permissions of the group, the owner can see my Telegram account. However, when you create a Telegram group, if you're an administrator, you can set yourself to anonymous, and then when you add the Telegram bot to that group, it will be invisible. Or it won't be invisible, but they won't be able to identify my Telegram username. They can stop this altogether just by locking down the bot in the first place and changing the permissions on it. They don't. I've never seen that happen. But yeah.
Thank you.
As of this moment, they're clear on OPSEC, right?
Yeah.
All right, thanks a lot.